Hello y'all and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about all those things that you might have in your mind if you have ever asked the question, should I go backpacking? And the answer is likely going to be yes, but today in this episode we are going to start from zero and take you through the steps that you need to think about before taking your first trip. Let's get into this. So the first question I want to address is, how old do you need to be to travel? And the simple answer is, there's no real age limit, and it's a common question, and I don't know why, but you're never too old. Anyone past the age of 18 upwards, likely you are going to be fine traveling. Like, your circumstances are totally your own and everyone's journey is different, and it's really important to understand why you want to travel before you do. So to give you an example of that, for me, I didn't start until I was in my 30s, and the reason why I started was because I'd effectively burnt out at work. I was fed up, I was really annoyed with the world, to be honest, and for me it became a way to escape from the 9 to 5 and a way to explore the world and kind of fall back in love with the world. And that is exactly what backpacking did for me. It made me fall back in love with the world, and that is why I am now doing this and hopefully trying to share that love of the world with you guys. But the fact of the matter is, everybody has their own reason. You might be 18 and just want to move out from your parents' house and have a bit of fun for a while. You might be 45 and thinking, I need to see some part of the world that I haven't seen before, because you're interested in the culture. Your reasons are your own. Don't let your age stop you. There should never be a reason to feel like age is a reason not to travel. So where do you want to go? That's a really good and interesting question, and one you kind of have to answer for yourself. But realistically, there are some more well-known travel trails. For example, Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, places like that. They're well-trodden and they're well set up for backpackers. So if you have safety concerns, then it's a really good place to go, because you're going to find a lot of other travelers. You're going to find people who have trodden the path before you, and you will have relatively almost somebody able to guide you around the whole time you're there. Not a singular person, but multiple backpackers and travelers who can kind of share the adventure with you, take on part of that leg of the journey that you're doing. So you have that safety net of your community, which is your backpacking community. More complex routes, places like India perhaps, which I'm going to take on, and then Central and South are actually extremely Central and South America are extremely well prepared for backpackers as well, and there's some really good trails there. A lot I've written about in my blogs, but they're very well set up to take backpackers, and you'll find people and friends. The party scene there is incredible. There's a lot of architecture that's to be really marveled. You fly into, a lot of people do it, it's called the Gringo Trail. You fly into Mexico in Cancun, and then you just go down as far south as possible, hitting places like Belize, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. And then you can get a boat across the Darien Gap from Panama to get to Colombia, or you can fly. Again, that comes down to your budget, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So once we know where we're going, we need to understand what we need to take, and we're going to talk about that now. Now I'm going to tell you why I like this bag, and I'm also going to tell you why I don't love this bag. And it's kind of been a really good bag, but it's not perfect, and I'm going to show you why. So what I love about this 40-litre bag is it does this. It opens fully, and I fully loaded this for a summer trip, so it's got everything I need in it if I was to be going to a warm climate. So this, you can see it's not got that much. It's got t-shirts, shirts, trousers, that kind of thing, and it's all there, it's all in there. But if I overload this bag any more than it is right now, it starts to bulge, and it bulges right on here. Now, the second thing this bag has got is a secondary area for your laptop. Your laptop's meant to slide in here. When you start to overload this area, you end up with a curve that effectively really ends up meaning you don't want to put your laptop in there. Now, not only that, it's got a headpiece. Now, I call this my tech drawer because I end up putting all my tech wires into this top piece here. So all my wires are in here. But what you end up with this Osprey 40-litre bag is a bag that's more bulbous at the top than it is at the bottom. Now what it does have as well are two straps on the back here that you can pull out for when you go hiking. That's actually why I got this bag, and it has worked well. It has saved me having to check it in. I've never checked it in, which is great, but I don't have everything in it still yet. And this is the other thing about this bag. You can see it's already quite bulbous. Now if I show you the rest of the stuff that I have here, you'll see why it becomes a bit of an issue, because the second bag I take a Northern Face, and this is, I think is a 20 or a 25 litre, so total I'm carrying about 65 litres. And I used these two bags for a 6-month trip and they did me absolutely fine. Everything went into them that I needed, but at some points it did feel a little bit difficult. One other thing I don't like about this bag is you need to get yourself a separate waterproof cover, and it is essential to get yourself a waterproof cover. Do not go traveling or backpacking without a waterproof cover for your bag, because there is nothing more miserable than going somewhere like Costa Rica, getting rained on heavily and having everything in your bag be wet. It is the worst thing. I mean, this has done a lot of miles, it's been on a lot of backs of buses and been thrown about a lot, and you can see it looks fantastic still. It is a really strong bag. Like the durability of it is insane. I do recommend the company. I'm not entirely sure I'd recommend this bag fully. Generally, clothes wise, I like enough to cover at least 2 weeks worth of unlaundered stay, but for me I prefer to visit laundries more often, and it's a good way of keeping your clothes fresh, and there's nothing better than getting fresh clothes back from a laundrette. Say underwear and undergarments are about 2 weeks, and then things like shirts, I have like 5 shirts, but shirts that are a bit more baggy can last a bit longer, and then trousers usually 3 or 4 pairs, shorts a few pairs, 3 or 4 pairs of those, socks 2 weeks worth, and then I take gym gear as well, just in case I want to go on a run or anything like that, yoga, anything like that, those sort of activities, swim shorts. That's roughly it clothing wise. Rain jacket, mine actually got stolen a few months back, so I need to replace that, but something like a Berghaus would be really good. I only took 2 pairs of shoes, and I took a pair of trail running shoes, which were fantastic for everything from hiking volcanoes to, you know, actually working out on the road, to just day-to-day city walks and things like that. And then I had a pair of sandals, which, you know, everybody's got a pair of sandals, you do need them. But if you are going to colder climates, then you are going to need a lot more. You are going to need more waterproofs, you're going to need more thermal layers, you're going to need hats, gloves, scarves. So bear that in mind when you're getting your bag as well, because a 40 litre bag or this 60 litre setup probably just won't cut it for you. So if I pull up my day sack now, this effectively operates as my tech drawer. So if I always have my laptop with me. It's in here, usually in a protective casing, and then a lot of the other things like the camera that I'm talking to you on now, that goes in here, and any of the rest of my tech stuff that I kind of regard as valuable, that all stays in this bag. So if I'm ever moving from A to B, stuff like my passport, that all stays in this bag. So what else is in here that might be useful? I have a little medical kit. Now, I never use this, but I have lent it to people before. This is a lifesaver. This is my down jacket. Never go anywhere without one. Invest in a good one. This is a Rab one. Money belt. Are they worth it? I stopped using mine roughly, but this is one of those things, you've probably seen them before. They've got zips in, so you can literally drop money into this section. Now, I say I didn't use, I did use it on border crossing days. I guess it could be useful on buses and things like that as well. Like if you're going from A to B, you could use it on a bus. Why not? Naturally, these things, lifesaver. If you can get one, check your prongs before you go, but with the 2 and then the 3, you know, if you're staying in a hostel or a dorm or something, just stick it in and you've got so much availability there. Smaller one, super useful if you are on a bus, because a lot of buses have charging ports underneath the chairs, so that one just charges the phone. A bigger one, just in case, that's for my British plug. power bank, super useful. My brother got me this, thank you brother. Hard drive, take with you. Now what's the red packet? That is actually a lunchbox that I got from Guatemala with my 2 friends. I wonder if they've still got theirs. But I ended up turning it into a thing where I hold my tech, because it's got a sealable lid. So if anything I don't want to get wet, if I'm getting on a boat or anything like that, and for example the hard drive's a great example of this. You just drop it in there, put the sealable lid on, and you know that is A, gonna float, and B, it is fully waterproof. Your toiletries. So I in here have, they're actually earplugs. So I in here have my DEET Jungle Formula to keep, so they're both the same thing basically. A toothbrush, deodorant, nail clippers. Now this is a good travel hack. Cologne. So they're tester bottles, but these little tester bottles, if you have a few of these and different smells, then they last you a heck of a long time. You won't be using them every day, mainly for when you go out and that sort of thing, but little testers of fragrances, they are so useful. Another travel hack, this is actually body lotion for the shower, but I started using a bar of soap. Keep the box and put it back in here, and you know it's not going to explode. Sunglasses. Cheapies. Take your cheap sunglasses. Don't take your Ray-Bans, don't take your Oakleys unless you are really sure you're not going to lose them. Earplugs, these are super important. So, you know, if you're staying in a 6-person dorm, usually most dorms are around 6 people, if not more. Everybody is getting up at different times. Some people might be going for sunrise hikes, some people might be coming back after a night out. Hey, my light's flashing. But you've got to accept that, and the way you accept that is through getting a good set of earplugs. If you can't get really good ones, take anything. Like, take cheap ones, take construction ones, take the little foam ones. Just take something. You will need them when you're trying to sleep. Eye mask, take one of those as well. Again, super useful, especially if not all dorms have beds with curtains. Always look for a dorm with a bed with a curtain, so you can kind of shut yourself away and cocoon yourself away. It's much better. It's really nice to have that little bit of privacy as well. It's super important with hostels, actually, lockers and curtains. Let's talk about water. Water of life. Now this is a Grail bottle and it has been fantastic. You usually have an orange filter on the bottle. I need to buy a new one. But this thing, it's a bit clunky if I'm being honest. Like, this Life Straw, now I have no idea why I have this in my bag, but effectively it's literally for worst case scenario. You drop one end in a puddle if you need to and drink the water, suck the water through the straw. It's in my bag, it will always be in my bag. Hopefully I'll never need to use it, and you'll need a couple of bank cards. Make sure your bank knows you're going away. Take one credit card, one debit card, and possibly a second debit card if you have another bank account. Make sure you've got enough money in both bank accounts, because sometimes the money from one bank account just won't withdraw. So you need another bank account, a second one to have a go at. I mean, to be honest with you, I barely use cards anymore. Everything's usually on my phone now, but whereas Europe or the UK and places like America are very much set up for contactless card payments or contactless phone payments, most other places just still aren't quite there. And I didn't realise that until I did start travelling more. So if you're one of those person who has, almost like me, stopped carrying your wallet now, be aware that you probably will need to take your cards, or you definitely will need to take your cards with you, and you may not even be able to tap them. You will need to make sure you have told your bank you're going away, and you will be withdrawing cash. Just on the side, I will put all of this into a link below, and I have already written a blog about it, so I will put a link to that. So I actually have two, one on everything you need to consider before you go backpacking, and the second one a backpacking checklist, which I'll put links for both in the video feed below. Passport. So one of the other things I have in my passport is my yellow vaccinations, yellow fever vaccinations. If you are going to a country like Central or South America, If you're going somewhere like the Amazon, then you're likely going to need one of these to take. But if you are going away, there are also vaccinations that you'll need. Again, I'll put a link below, but the things that you immediately usually need to think of are things like rabies, which is 3 jabs. So you need to book these in advance before you go to the country that you're thinking about. Now, if you're going to somewhere like Japan, it's probably not going to be necessary, but you might need, for example, Japanese influenza jab, whereas rabies you're probably not going to be as worried about. So those considerations do need to happen, and you need to think about those before you start, well in advance of your preparation, because say some of them, for example, rabies jab is 3 different jabs over the course of a couple of months, about 6 weeks actually, but you do need to make sure you have those jabs done well in advance. So just look at your local resources. I will put a link to some really good vaccination advice, and you can have a look at that, but just bear in mind you will likely need something no matter where you go. So there's 2 ways of almost backpacking. Now, some people seem to think that it's literally having a tent and a roll mat and never staying in a bed, but for me it was going hostel to hostel, place to place, bus to bus, and I always had a bed, and if I didn't, it was usually because I was on an excursion somewhere with somebody who had provided me with a tent. Now, if you're thinking about backpacking in the sense that I'm going to be pitching a tent on the side of a road, I've never really come across that, and I don't regard that as backpacking. I regard that very much as hiking or mountaineering, and for me backpacking is much more of a light touch way to explore the earth. You know, you don't need as many clothes, as much stuff with you. You just need literally the clothes on your back and whatever else you need for your personal agenda. So that's about everything that I have in my bag. So please comment below if you do have input and advice to share with fellow backpackers. Budget, good question. I'm going to cover most of that in the blog, but generally when I was traveling through Central and South in 2022, I was allowing about £1,000 a month. I spent about £6,000 over the period of traveling, and then a little bit more for things like insurance. And your bag can always be replaced, but your health can't, so don't gamble with that. Take out insurance. There are dedicated sites for this, especially for backpackers and extended trips. So I'll put links to a couple from the UK below. I don't know if they'll be universal. They probably won't be, I guess. But there are a few known companies in the UK who are specialising in these areas to try and keep costs down for backpackers and explorers. Flights. Where do I find flights from? Skyscanner, simple as that. Places like Kayak, if it's still going. I sometimes go direct to airlines to see exactly who's flying to where. Little travel hack here, some package holidays that you get. Sometimes the airlines want to drop people into planes to, say, like Cancun's a good one, for example. There are consistent flights out to Cancun. If there is a package holiday plane that is definitely going and they have a spare spot, you might actually be able to get a super cheap ticket on that package holiday deal for that plane journey alone, obviously not the package holiday. Where to stay. Now, naturally, there are the usual suspects, booking.com, Hostelworld, and the best thing to do, my best piece of advice here, is to actually go direct to the hostel that you're thinking of staying at, or the place that you're thinking about staying at, because sometimes you can get a much better deal, not all the time, but if you roughly know where you want to go, then it's a good thing to just look ahead in advance. There's a couple particularly that spring to mind. One in Flores in Guatemala, Los Amigos, which you're probably better off going straight to their website. It's a really good website. They actually have a lot of their excursions on there as well. And then some like Zephyr Lodge in Guatemala, you literally have to go to their website to book, and you have to book in advance. It's a couple of weeks in advance, it's that popular. But there are a lot of options if you can't get into the ones that you want, and generally most backpackers tend to mingle all together anyway. A lot of the hostels in the same areas all speak to each other and organise events and things around the same days, like or separate days. So one does a quiz night, one does a live music night, another does something else, and most of the backpackers in the area kind of I guess ebb and flow to each of those locations and nights, and the people in your hostel are always a fantastic resource of what to do on each night and who to talk to or where to go, where to see. So booking into a great hostel is probably the best way for me for backpacking, because you just meet so many more people, and you find really cool events, really cool stuff going on, and the people on your reception desk are in the know more than anybody else is. And if you want to know how I'm going to plan this India trip, then stay tuned and subscribe, because that is the video I'm going to do next. And once I've done that video, I'm going to take you guys with me to India, and we are going to start exploring some cool architecture. So stay tuned.